Hello and welcome. Today we are going to look at the quick start guide for installing Icinga together. We are going to be starting with a clean installation of an Ubuntu 20.04. The first thing that we are going to do is installing the different packages for the things that we need, which are Icinga 2, Icinga DB, Icinga Web, Icinga DB Web, and Icinga Director. So these are the core components that we are going to use. But before we install any of that, we are going to need a database. We will follow the quick start guide by installing MySQL. So the first task is to install MySQL. So we are going to switch over to the CLI and do that. We are going to be switching over to the sudo user, so we won't have to enter the sudo for every command. And of course, we are going to update and upgrade our system first. Now that our system is up to date, we are going to install the MySQL server packages. With systemctl status, we are going to check if the MySQL is running as expected. And it looks like it's up and running. As you can see, the documentation supports different operating systems like Ubuntu, Debian, SLES and RHEL. But for this tutorial, we are of course just going to follow the Ubuntu side. Now that we've fulfilled the requirements by installing MySQL, we are going to jump to Icinga itself. For this, we are going to add the official Icinga repository to our system. For convenience, we can just copy the entire block. As you might have seen, this also includes the keyring, which then enables us to install the Icinga packages themselves. So we are again going to copy this block and paste it into the CLI. And now that our packages have been installed correctly, we can set up the API. And we are going to copy the next block, which starts with Icinga 2 API setup. And then we will restart the service. And this will install our certificate agency, which will then handle all of the certificates within the different Icinga instances. And we will continue the setup of our Icinga by creating the different databases that we are going to need in the MySQL database. The three databases that we are going to create are one for the Icinga Web, so the web interface, for the Director, our automation tool that we are going to install later, and for the Icinga DB. So we log into the database. So before we copy all of the blocks here, there is to be noted that there are passwords in there currently called change.me, which we will leave as it is for this tutorial, but please do change the passwords for your installation. And then we are going to execute all of the three commands to create our databases. So we are just going to copy the first one, and then the second one, and then the third. And last but not least, we are also going to import the database schema for Icinga DB. For that, we are going to need to exit the MySQL and paste the command into the command line. The password will be the one that you've just set. In our case, change.me. In your case, only you should know the password. Now that we've finished setting up the database in MySQL, we are going to continue with Redis for Icinga DB. So first we have to enable it with systemctl enable. And to check if it works, we are going to use systemctl status to see if it works. And it does. The next step is then to enable the Icinga DB feature in Icinga 2 and to restart Icinga 2 again. The output you see here is from enabling the Icinga DB feature, and even though it looks like it's the wrong way around, the restart happened afterward. It's just quiet. Next we want to start the Icinga DB, which we do via systemctl enable to enable the Icinga DB service. And just to be sure, we are also going to check the status of the Icinga DB service, which looks good. Now that Icinga 2 and Icinga DB, so our backends, are up and running, we are going to switch over to the setup of Icinga Web, which is our web frontend. In order for the web frontend to run, we are of course going to need a web server to run it on, so we are going to install the libapache mod for PHP. And to connect the frontend and the backend, we are going to use the Icinga CLI command to create a token that we will use for the Icinga Web setup wizard. Once we run this on the command line, we get our access token that we are going to need in the next step in the Icinga Web. And in case you lose your token somehow, there is also a Icinga CLI command to show it again. And for the next part of the install, we are going to leave our CLI for now and switch to the setup wizard in Icinga Web. So once we hop on the correct URL, we will be prompted to enter the token that we've just generated. Before we click on next, make sure you read all of the information below. For example, that we also need to set up our web user. So you can just copy the command from the info below. In our case, the user already existed, but we still needed the user mod to happen. So that is perfect. And we'll click on next. On this page, you can see an overview over the different Icinga web modules that we can enable during the setup. The important ones for our setup are going to be the Icinga DB module, which includes all of the basic monitoring. And the other one is the director, which is responsible for automation. And we will also show you how to add hosts and services with it later. The other modules we'll leave untouched for now. Next we see a list of requirements. Most of them are green already, and there is one PHP module missing, shown in yellow. It's just a warning, it's not required, but just to get everything green, we are also going to install PHP in Magic. And if we refresh, all is green. Beautiful. So let's go on. Next we land on Authentication. Here we only need to select the authentication type. Database is already the correct choice since we are going to use the MySQL database that we set up earlier. Before we enter all of the credentials, we are going to jump back to our guide and go to the chapter Web Setup. We already did the first few steps with the user mod and the modules. And here we are at the database resource. What you can see here are the default credentials for this installation. So you might need to change the host, and you definitely need to change your password. And we're going to enter this into the web now. So for the database name, it's going to be Icinga Web 2. For the username, just as well, Icinga Web 2. Our password is change.me. And then we will validate our configuration. For green, let's go next. Next up, we set the name that this database will be known as by the Icinga. Icinga Web 2 is a fine name for that. In this step, we have to enter an admin user. I'm just going to call it Icinga Demo, give it a password, and repeat the password, and click Next. Just to stay on track, I'm going to hop back into the documentation. We did that and that. So for the application configuration, we'll just leave everything at default for now and go next. Here it shows us a little summary of what we have done so far. And the Icinga Web setup looks successful so far. And next up there is the Icinga DB Web. So you can look at Icinga Web as the framework and Icinga DB as the content that does show us our monitoring. So here we have to connect the second database that we set up. So just now we used the Icinga Web database, and in this form we are going to use the Icinga DB database that we set up. So we are just going to add the database name IcingaDB, the username also IcingaDB, and the password change.me. Now we validate what we entered and everything's green. So let's keep up with the quick start guide documentation. Next up is Redis. Here you will want to enter the host where your Redis is running. In our case, it's just localhost since everything is running on one machine. Once again, we validate. It works just as it is. So this is just a setup for testing it and having it work. If you're going to use it in production, you're probably going to need to configure the rest, but for now, this works fine. Let's go on. Next up, we're going to set up the API. So let's go back to the docs. And here you can see where the credentials for the API users are located. So let's jump back to the terminal and have a look. So right now we only have one user, our root user. We will copy this password. So we'll hop back to our setup wizard, paste the password and add the root as our username. And the host is once again the local host. We validate and it looks good. So here we have a little summary of everything that we've configured so far. And if everything looks good, we can finish. In this step, there's another summary. This looks good, and we can log into the Icinga Web. So this looks like a success. We have our Icinga login mask, and the user that I've chosen was Icinga Demo. And we're in. The first view that greets you is a little bit of a dashboard. And as you can see, there's already a host and a few different services available. So let's have a look around. On the left side, you can see a section overview and hosts. And in here, you can see the first host, quick start guide demo, which is this machine here. And under services right below the hosts, you can see all of the services that it comes with. Everything is green except for the swap, but the swap is not defined on our machine, so let's ignore this for now. So this is as far as I would go for today. In the next video, we're going to have a look at the director and how to set that one up correctly and add a few hosts and services. Thank you for watching and have a good day.